Hey, this is Rick Caselge. Hey, this is Rick Caselge from HealingThroughMovement.com. I want to welcome you to this Facebook Live video. Now, in this Facebook Live, what I'm going to go through is hip bursitis. Hip bursitis has been a common question that's come up, and I wanted to go through 5 healing movements for hip bursitis. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Rick Caselge. I'm a kinesiologist, personal trainer, exercise therapist, and also the creator of Unlock Your Hip Flexors, which has helped thousands of people around the world overcome stiff, tight, painful hips in order to go back to doing what they enjoy. I highly recommend you check out the program. It's been life-changing to thousands of people. Now let me get to today's topic in this Facebook Live, hip bursitis. Now let me start off with, if you've heard of hip bursitis, or if you've suffered from hip bursitis, or if you have hip pain and tightness, hit the thumbs up. Let me get an idea of how many people are suffering from that and that need help and solutions when it relates to hip bursitis. Now, before I go through the movements when it relates to hip bursitis, let me go through through a little bit of background when it comes to hip bursitis. So common causes for hip bursitis is, stiffness in the hip joint. So a common mistake people will make is they don't really think about, how smoothly the hip joint moves. So that's kind of targeting the hip mobility side of things. What they tend to think about and focus in on is the muscles around that hip joint and those muscles being tight. So, and just focusing on those tight muscles, what we need to do is make sure that the joint is moving smoothly and properly, and mobility exercises help with that. And if the joint is stiff and not moving properly, that's going to put irritation on the bursa and lead to hip bursitis. Now, second common cause, and when it comes to that hip mobility exercises, I go through a handful in the Unlock Your Hip Flexor program, so you can check out more exercises there that'll help you out when it comes to hip mobility. Now, the second cause is muscle tightness. So the muscles around your hip tighten up, especially if you sit lots, if you have poor posture, those muscles will tighten up. Press up against the bursa and lead to hip bursitis. So we need to address that tightness. And a common mistake people make is they will just address it with static stretching. And static stretching is a temporary solution. It's not a long-term solution. And I go through in more details of different modalities that are important for you to do and implement in order to overcome hip pain and hip tightness. And I go through them in the Unlock Your Hip Flexor program. Now, the third common cause when it comes to hip bursitis, it's poor movement patterns, and that can be, from your walking, your running, lifting, and doing things throughout the day. You have poor movement patterns. And a good example I see when it comes to in the gym is just people like how they squat or lift weights is not efficient and poor, leading to poor results and putting unnecessary stress on different parts of the body. The fourth common cause is just overtraining. You're not incorporating enough rest and recovery in your program. You're just focusing in on the training side of things. Those days off or doing those things to help recover from a workout are really important. Now, looking at what you should do to start off with, you should start off with rest, ice to kind of control inflammation, decrease the swelling. That's kind of your first initial step. The next things that you should do is work on stretching that affected area. And I did mention that the stretching is kind of a temporary solution, but I would start off with that and then add more and more modalities to help when it comes to that tightness around the hip. And I go through those modalities and a really easy routine that you can follow. It's a 10-minute routine in the Unlock Your Hip Flexor program. Now, looking at, also you want to kind of focus in on movements that help keep that joint limber and preserve the mobility. And I'll go through a couple here, but more details are in the Unlock Your Hip Flexor program. Now, other things you want to do in order to prevent, going back to having hip bursitis is really look at, proper posture, proper technique, proper training, proper muscle and movement patterns. Those will help prevent getting reoccurring hip bursitis. Okay, so now let's go through the exercises that you can do if you have hip bursitis. And we're mainly focusing on the stretching side of things. Now, so I'll get Jenna to come up, and she's going to go through the exercises, and I'll kind of highlight the details. So the first one is a crossed foot standing stretch. Back up. So how it breaks down is you're in a nice upright position, head, shoulders, hips, legs in a straight line. You're going to cross one leg over, and now you're going to bend through the hip, and then after you bend through the hip, through the rest of the spine. Good. Then you're going to hold that bottom position for a couple seconds. And this back leg is where the stretching is happening. And then back up. Now, looking at the sets, reps, time, and intensity that you're going to do for this one, sets would be 1, repetitions would be 2, time would be, ideally you want to build up to 20 seconds, but 20 seconds might be too much for you to start off with. You can start off with 5 to 10 second hold. Intensity is light, and the purpose of this is to statically stretch the muscles around that hip area. Okay, now moving on to the second one. So the second one's a piriformis stretch. So we're moving up onto the massage table. And we're just kind of going through utilizing the massage table to replicate on the floor, doing exercises on the floor, and also to kind of highlight, if you have difficulty getting on and off the floor, you can easily do the exercises on your bed, and that's kind of what the massage table represents. So I'll get Jenna to go through the exercise, and then I'll kind of highlight the details of the exercise. Okay, good. So breaking it down, so you're moving to the floor on your bed, you're lying on your back, relaxing the upper body and the shoulders. You're going to cross one leg over, then you're going to bring both knees up. Your hands are going to grab the back of the lower leg. You're going to pull the knees closer to you in order to intensify the stretch. You're going to find that position where you're getting a light stretch, and you're going to hold that position. And you'll hold that position for about 20 seconds, and then relax. So when it comes to the sets, reps, time, and intensity for this one, sets would be 1, repetitions would be 2, and you're going to alternate back and forth. Time is 20 seconds. You're going to hold that end position for 20 seconds. The intensity is light, and this is the modality that we're focusing on is static stretching. And in many ways, it's an easier version of the first exercise that we went through. Okay, now going on through the third one, so supine, single leg, straight leg raise. I'll get Jen to go through a couple reps of the exercise, and then I'll kind of break it down and go through the details of it. Okay, good. So how this breaks down, once again, we're on the floor, we're on the massage table, or we're on the bed. You're relaxing upper body and shoulders. You're laying straight, so you're laying fully down. Legs are straight. What you're going to do is tighten up the abdominal area. Then you're going to lift the leg up. Good. And then a good hold, and then back down. And then relax the abdominal area, and then you go to the other side. Tighten, and lift the leg up, and back down. So with this one, looking at the sets, reps, time, and intensity for this one, sets are 1, repetitions would be 5, time, smooth controlled movement with a good stop at the end position. The intensity is light, and with this one, we're utilizing a little bit different of a modality. We're utilizing core stability, so working on abdominals, increasing the abdominal strength, and increasing the abdominal strength will help with the bursitis. Also, we're dynamically stretching the hamstring. So we've kind of brought in 2 more different modalities when it comes to what to do about hip bursitis. And that's important because a lot of times people will just focus on stretching or they say stretch, 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 and stretching will solve everything, and that's not the case. If you've ever had aches, pains, and injuries, and you try just to stretch, it works for a little while, but it's not a long-term solution. Okay, moving on to the next exercise. So we're on the fourth one, prone hip extension. So we're still on the floor, or on the bed, or on the massage table, and then Jenna's going to go through a couple repetitions of this one. Okay, good. How this one breaks down is you're lying on your stomach, you're completely straight, relaxed in the upper body and in the neck and shoulders. You have your hands overhead, and you're resting your forehead on your hands so that your body's in a nice, good, straight position. Now what you're going to do is tighten up that abdominal area, lift the thigh off the bed or the floor or the mat, and then back down, and then relax and then tighten up again, lift that thigh up, really working the glutes, gluteus maximus, to do this movement, and then back down, and secondarily hamstrings. Perfect. So then looking at the sets, reps, time, and intensity, for this one, sets would be 1, repetitions would be 5, time would be smooth controlled movement with a good contraction of the top position. The intensity is on the light side of things, and the purpose of this one is we're working on the activation, endurance, and strength of gluteus maximus and waking that up, as a lot of times that muscle will not be functioning properly, and that poor functioning gluteus maximus muscle will have a negative effect on the hip, leading to hip tightness and hip bursitis. Perfect. So that's the fourth one. Now moving to the fifth one, squat with mini ball. So we're going to grab the mini ball. So this is like yoga ball or Pilates ball. So instead of it being a big, huge stability ball like this one, it's a small mini one. So with this one, what you can do is take the mini ball and put it between your knees. I'll walk around. and then hands are out front, and you're squatting down and back up, and then squatting down and back up. Good. So with this one, we're working on the squatting pattern, having that mini ball, thanks Jenna, having the mini ball helps, you're pressing up against the ball, it helps activate the core and abdominal area, you're going through that squatting pattern, it also helps make sure that you're going nice and straight with that squatting pattern, and have good alignment, and are really working the muscles in the knees and in the hips. So there you go. Those are the 5 movements to give them a go. Now, let me know if you've ever done any of these exercises, or if you've done any other movements that have helped you out with your hip bursitis. Please do share them down below. If you got benefit from this Facebook Live video, please do like the Facebook Live video. And if you know of anyone that has hip bursitis or hip pain, tightness, and stiffness, do share this Facebook Live with them. Also, if you try some of these out and you're getting some benefit from them, then I really recommend that you check out the Unlock Your Hip Flexors program. It's a real simple 10 exercise, 10-minute routine that will drastically help your hips, and also a number of my clients that have hip bursitis have benefited from it. Now that's it. Just before I wrap up, make sure if you have questions for me about this topic, leave them down below. If you have other Facebook Live topics that you want me to cover, leave them down below as well. So that's it. So thank you very much for joining me on this Facebook Live. This is Rick Casales from HealingThroughMovement.com saying take care and bye-bye.